one of the problems we have is that on some level, Mitt Romney didn't even believe his own life story. Again, I do not wish to criticize him. I admire him enormously. But I can give you an example of how subtle this is and how pervasive it is when I say that Mitt Romney didn't believe his own message. He didn't believe his own story. Forget about the Republican Party story. For example, you would hear the press talk to Mitt Romney, and they would ask a question along the lines of, "Oh, Mr. Romney, you're worth $200 million. How can you possibly connect with the American people?" Now, a candidate who actually believes his own party's philosophy would answer that question perhaps like this. Well, first of all, Ms. Crowley, I'm not worth $200 million. I'm worth $250 million. Please do not remove the $50 million from my bank account that I have worked very, very hard to obtain. I might point out to you, first of all, that every single one of the $250 million in my bank account was given to me freely, through no coercion. I'm not the government. I didn't have the power to take it at gunpoint through taxation. It was given to me freely in trade for value that I provided to other people, and people never trade down. No one trades down. So that means that other people in this country felt that I gave them more than $250 million of value in exchange for the $250 million I have in my bank account right now. I'd like to point out also that, as you can see from my tax returns, which I released prior to running for president, that I've paid $60 million in taxes over the course of my lifetime. And I expect to pay quite a bit more than that before I die. So who's really helping the poor people here? Who's actually helping poor, disadvantaged Americans? I've paid $60 million in taxes, which have gone to entitlements, welfare, Social Security benefits, all of these things. Community organizers have paid precisely nothing. They hand out forms, but the forms that people fill out to get benefits are paid for by people like me. And now we get to the root of it, Ms. Crowley, because the real reason I'd like to answer this question directly is, the reason that I have $250 million in my bank account is because I and my associates have generated, we're able to approximately $5 billion of wealth for this society. $5,000 million is about the number that we've generated, which means that the $250 million that I've kept is but a tiny sliver of the total amount of wealth that we've generated for everybody. People all across this country, thousands, if not tens, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of people, have gotten paychecks as a result of the work that we do. We haven't just given them handouts. I pay taxes so people can have handouts, but we have paid salaries, and that is people's car payments, and it's their children's college tuitions, it's mortgage payments. All of this is generated by the work that we do, of which I've kept a tiny sliver, which is $250 million. And the final thing I might point out to you is this. I'm running for President of the United States of America. This is the richest country in the history of the world. We have a nation for the first time in history where the primary health concern among poor people is obesity. I may have $250 million in my bank account, but I am telling you now that if I stand next to a person who's flat out broke, who hasn't got a penny, I do not live 250 million times better than that person does, not here in America. They have air conditioning, I have air conditioning. I have more rooms to air condition, but we both have air conditioning. They have a car, I have a few cars. I don't have 250 million cars, and the cars I do have are not 250 million times better than theirs. If I get hit by a bus, I'm taken to the same hospital as the poorest Americans, where I'm given the same treatment by the same doctors as the poorest Americans. I get the same antibiotics and the same medical treatment as the poorest Americans. And so the $250 million that is being used to demonize me as a person who's not an actual being, but rather a vampire, does not mean I live on a different planet than you. On the contrary, what it means is my entire philosophy is based on the idea that everybody should have $250 million, and that's why I'm not ashamed to talk about my bank account. And you can hear it again and again and again and again. Mr. Romney, you have $40 million in your assets overseas, in overseas accounts. Would you like to explain that to the American people? I'd be delighted to explain it to the American people. I'm a money manager. My job is to put my money in the smartest place on earth. So, I have $40 million in overseas accounts, including Switzerland and the Cayman Islands. And rather than talking about whether or not I have money overseas, why don't we talk about why I have my money overseas? Why don't we talk about the fact that the United States of America has the 40th highest corporate tax rate, where we used to be the lowest tax rate in the world, now we're number 40? Why is it that we're not talking about the policies and the procedures that this president and this administration have put in place that make the smart play putting my money overseas? Why don't we talk about changing the rules so that money managers and wealthy people from all over planet Earth are putting their money in America like they used to? Why don't we have that conversation? No. We don't have that conversation because we don't believe our own story. Now, because I get up and talk